Hi everybody, this is Chris and I thought I would create a video with the top 10 shortcuts that I use on a daily basis and that I think that they save me a lot of time. There's multiple shortcuts out there for Excel. There's close to 100 or more shortcuts, but these are personally the ones that I think that save me the most time and that I find myself using when I'm working on an Excel spreadsheet. So like I said, there's 10 of those that I'm going to be covering. But before that, I'm also going to be covering some of the more essential and basic shortcuts that I feel like you might already know. But just in case that you don't know them, I'm going to do a rapid fire with some of the essentials. So the rapid fire. First of all, if you want to save your spreadsheet, that's going to be Control S. If your spreadsheet doesn't have a name or location, there's going to be a window popping up asking for the name and location. Next, if we want to print the spreadsheet, we do Control P. If we want to, let's say that we make a change and that we regret making that change, we can do undo, and that will be Control Z. See, we have the change back. If you want to redo that change, we can do Control Y. There we go. If we want to bold the values in a cell, we can do Control B. If we want to select our data set, all of the cells in our data set, that's Control A. See, we can select everything. One thing to keep in mind with Control A is that it would only select the data set that's adjacent to other values. So let's say that there's a column, blank column here, and I do Control A here, that would only select the data set on the left. So it will treat these two as separate data sets. So that's why there has to be values between the two of them, so it will select all of them. That's Control A. If we want to quickly navigate our spreadsheet, we can do Control plus the arrows to take us to the end of the spreadsheet, to the right of the spreadsheet, to the top of the spreadsheet, and back to the left. So you can use those to navigate however you want, but it's a quick way to get around your spreadsheet. So that's Control plus arrows. So those were some rapid fire shortcuts. Those are very essential and quite basic. Most of you might already know those, but if you don't, there you go. Let's dive into the other shortcuts that I use all the time. Let's start with adding columns and rows, new columns and rows. Let's say that we want to add a new column here. You will do Control plus. There you go. That would also work for rows. Let's say we want to add a new row above this row. That's also Control plus. Same thing applies for deleting these rows. If we want to delete, let's say, this column, we can do Control minus. It will delete the column. Same for the row, Control minus. It will delete the row. And along the lines of moving our columns and rows around, there's another tip here. This is not really a shortcut. This is more of an easy way of doing it. But let's say that we want to move the body style column to be the third column in our data set. We will select the column, we hold shift, and we click on the side of the column. Here we see we can move the column. We drag that and we move the order of that column. Same thing applies for columns. Let's say I select this column, I hold on shift, and I can bring it down. Okay. There's another way of doing that. It really depends on which way you want to use. But another way that I typically will use is that I can cut this column and paste it here. So that will be, you have to select the column to Control X. Let's say that we want to put it here as the third column. You select the new placing and you do Control plus. And it will cut it from the previous location and it will paste it in the new location. Okay, I use this next shortcut all of the time, and people are sometimes impressed with this shortcut, but it's basically Control Shift L to add filters to our dataset. You can add shortcuts as easy as that. So this is a toggle. Again, Control Shift L will get rid of them very easily. We can quickly create a data table in our data set by selecting a cell in our data set and doing Control T, and that would create a table. It will ask us to confirm the range of our data table and if our data table has headers. Here, yeah, this looks correct, so I will click OK, and it will format that as a data table. One thing to consider again is that data needs to be adjacent, needs to be continuous, because otherwise, let's say that there's a blank column here. If I select a cell here and I do Control T, it will try to create a new table with only this range and not including the rest. We can change that manually here if we want in the range, but I would recommend just deleting this column and making sure that it's all continuous data. And now we can do Control T and it will select the whole range and turn it into a table. Another shortcut to make quick selections, to select columns or rows, would be you can select the top of your row, hold Control Shift and use your arrows in any way that you want, and you will select the whole column in the direction that you want. Same will apply for rows. So let's say I'm doing Control Shift right, it will select the whole row. And you can use this many different ways. So if you hold on Shift, let's say, and select this, you can start selecting things, and then you hold on Control as well, and let's say Control down, there you go. So you don't have to be using your mouse all the time. Okay, another very useful shortcut is to copy formulas into values. Let me give you an example here. So I can create a new formula here, which will take this value, multiply it by 2, and I have a new value. But this value is stored as a formula, right? So let's say that now I want to copy this 177 to another cell, but keep that as a value, not a formula. Because if I do a formula, I will keep on multiplying by 2, and that's not what we want to do. So let's say I can select all of this. I can do Control C, our typical copy way of copying. We can just do Control V, and see now it's copying as a formula. But next thing that we will have to do is click on Control and click on V. There we go. It's copying the formulas as values. So see, this is a value now instead of a formula. Again, one more time, that's Control C, Control V, Control V. Another shortcut that I use all the time is find and replace. So let's say that I want to look for a specific value in this data set. I can do Control F and I can look for, let's say, all of the sedans. Find all, and I have a list of all of the values where there's a sedan. So along those lines, but even more useful, we have the find and replace shortcut. It will find specific values and it will replace them with whatever we want. So let's say that in this column, number of doors, I want to replace these letters with numbers instead. I can select the range and do Control H. That will open the find and replace box, and I can say, okay, I want to find where it says 2, I want to replace that with the number 2. I can replace all. There we go. Next shortcut is the flash fill. This is very useful as well. This will use machine learning to learn some of the patterns of the cells that you input, and based on that it will create a new cell. So let's say here I want to do rear wheel drive convertible, because I want to paste these two together. I can select this and I can do Control E, flash fill. Very useful. See, it's pasting them all immediately without me having to use a formula in this field. You need to be careful though, because this is using machine learning and it's trying to learn all of these values based on the first row that you inputted. So if you want to try to make this more accurate, you need to give it several examples manually, and let's say, I don't know, top 10 rows, and based on that you can do Control E, because that way the results will be more accurate. Yeah, because otherwise the Excel will be guessing, it will not guess right every time. So that's flash fill, Control E. And last one for today would be group cells, group columns, group rows. So let's say that I want to create a group with these 3 columns. I can select 3 of them and do Shift Alt right, and it will make them a group, and I can hide them and unhide them. And same applies for rows. I select them and I do Shift Alt right. There we go. Very easy way to hide data. So that's all for this video. Those are my top 10 most useful Excel shortcuts. I use them all the time. I hope that you learned something today with those, and I hope that this was useful. And if it was, please leave it a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks.